morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ever since Blessed Geza and his 4 war veterans, the 5 amigos, came out and called Mnangagwa's Vision 2030 bullshit and demanded that Mnangagwa must resign because he's corrupt and incompetent. President Mnangagwa himself has never come out in reply, in response to those calls. Apparently, it's doing so now. Here is a video clip of him addressing that very issue.
Unfortunate and misplaced narratives that seek to distort facts as well as stir up division and discord should not be given a footing in our body politic. True cadres of the party are clear on the correct line of our revolution, our party history, our values and our traditions. Do not be clouded or misled by wolves in sheep's clothing, abusing our rich liberation heritage for their own divisive ends. Loyal members of Zanu PF by day and Zanu PF by night, not merely when it is convenient, but you must remain loyal day or night, sleeping or awake, and not when it is convenient or expedient to do so. At no time should we, as the party leadership, question you about your sense of commitment, your sense of duty and loyalty. Zvibvunze pachako pauri ipapo wakamira sei.
Well. He has indeed made it very clear.
The misplaced narrative.
And this is a party renowned for its use of violence. Whenever Zanu PF has felt threatened, its hold on power has felt threatened, the party has never hesitated to resort to wanton violence. Ever since the country's independence in 1980, one can enumerate the number of times Zanu PF has felt its hold on power threatened, and it reacted viciously. The most famous case, of course, is the Gukurahundi massacre, where, as I've said often on this platform, the primary purpose of that massacre was to force PF ZAPU to give up its ambition of remaining as an independent political party, because it was the only party that seriously threatened the Zanu PF stay in power. And when PF ZAPU leaders signed the Unity Accord in 1987, that cleared the way for the party to impose the de facto one-party state that has ruled the country to this day. The only other notable occasion when Zanu PF's hold on power was seriously threatened was the 2008 elections. Run up to those elections, SADC, it put Zanu PF under enormous pressure to implement significant electoral reforms, which made that year's party elections, the March vote, the nearest the country's ever got to holding free, fair, and credible elections. However, as the results started coming out, and it was clear that Zanu PF was losing, Mnangagwa stepped in, stopped the SEC counting the results, and what followed was the most blatant cheating that one could imagine. Morgan Tsvangirai's 73% of the vote was whittled down to 47%, enough to force the runoff. And during the runoff, Mnangagwa headed what was to be called Operation Mafotera Papi, a military-style operation in which the ordinary people were punished for having rejected Zanu PF in the March vote. Here is Mnangagwa himself boasting of his exploits that year.
2008 patakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent ya president. Ma-results abuda tiri party headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu ve-administration vamutasa muripi yafona ndiri kwarusapi komo kwenda kwarusapi seka ma-results achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndizvo zvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti zani yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati ndomamira zvakaita takatodini katida sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaure navo baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvipi gadzirai chi cabinet asi nangoda kuti muzive kuti 2008 ma-results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35, they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Arusurufaro. We know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance.
The truth of the matter was that Zanu PF used wanton violence to reclaim power. But the threat President Mnangagwa is issuing this time is directed at his own fellow Zanu PF members. The party is being torn apart by the factionalism that has broken out. It is important for the ordinary Zimbabweans to understand the distinction. While I totally agree that Zimbabwe's economic and political situation is such that the people of Zimbabwe have to demand meaningful change to put an end to this criminal waste of human and material resources. What is happening in Zimbabwe is tragic. Right now, over 50% of the population are living in abject poverty because of 45 years of gross mismanagement, rampant corruption, and tyrannical rule by Zanu PF. So the people's fight is one, where as much as people fear the regime's use of violence against them, and it has used violence against ordinary people to stop them demanding meaningful change. People must realize that what is also going on in the party, this factional war in the party, has nothing to do with them. In 2017, the people made the mistake of siding with the Lacoste faction. When they staged that military coup, they knew that was illegal. And they were under enormous pressure to restore their legality. And so they promised the people that if they come out in support of the coup, they will implement reforms, democratic reforms, to dismantle the one-party state. The people were so focused on the Mugabe must go that they did not seek any meaningful, concrete proposals to make sure that there would be democratic reforms. And so they came out, and when Mugabe saw hundreds of thousands of people out on the street celebrating the coup, he did tender his resignation. And as soon as Mnangagwa and company had that in their pocket, they turned around and forgot about their promises. Mnangagwa himself promised that he would hold free, fair, and credible elections the following year, 2018, and yet went on to blatantly rig the 2018 elections and the 2023 elections. Nothing changed. So the people made a big mistake. Right now, in the factional war, they spitted Mnangagwa, who wants to extend the stay in power beyond the term limit of 2028. And supporters of his VP Chiwenga, who want him to go. What we, the people, must understand is as much as we agree with the so-called Gaza revolution, we cannot agree on its objective. Keza himself has made it very clear. As far as he's concerned, they want Mnangagwa to go and to be replaced by VP Chiwenga. Here is Geza speaking to that point.
Are you against the 2030 slogan?
Yeah, I'm very much against. I think from my last interview, now that this is bullshit. You know? This is bullshit.
But you yes.
Yema fighters. Tope yapasa kana one way up in the State House. Unaona zini normalism.
But you were two guys. Robert Kapio Mugabe was your guy.
Ah, fuck off, man.
Mnangagwa was your guy.
Iwe. When we say my war veterans, wanzo ndikutara zvakawanda. Wanzo right. Our man nationalists, ndotara my war veterans. You know?
What's the difference?
I'm not prepared to expand. Yeah. Iwega unofana kufunga kuti.
So the Geza revolution is about power. It has absolutely nothing to do with ending the dictatorship. All we'll be doing is removing Mnangagwa to replace him with Chiwenga. The people of Zimbabwe should at least be smart enough to realize that they are being used. There is nothing in that factional war for them. Whatever happens in Zanu PF is nothing to do with the ordinary people of Zimbabwe. We must keep our eyes focused on what really matters to the people, to the ordinary Zimbabwean, i.e., our fight is to dismantle the Zanu PF dictatorship. Let me be very clear on that. To dismantle the Zanu PF dictatorship. Replacing one dictator with another is not the same thing. We really cannot afford to make the same mistake we made in 2017. So the people of Zimbabwe must stay out of the Zanu PF factional wars. If Zanu PF is going to shed blood, let them shed blood among themselves. Nothing to do with us. And we must make sure that both factions know our position, know that we are interested in dismantling the dictatorship that has failed the nation, and not interested in another swap of one dictator for another. The right of every Zimbabwean to a meaningful say in the governance of the country is more than just a right. It is the very essence of good governance. After 45 years of rigged elections and corrupt and incompetent governance, Zimbabwe is desperate to put an end to this madness. And the only sure way of making sure that happens is making sure that we demand democratic reforms be implemented so that the 2028 elections are free, fair, and credible. Some people have argued that, yes, if we were to side with Geza and the others, we will advance that because they've promised to have a transition government which will implement reforms. Let me rest assure you, that transition government, even if they would honor it, will be headed by Zanu PF, and the army will be the guarantor. Both Zanu PF, Chiwenga and company, and the army have an invested interest in keeping the status quo. They will never accept any meaningful reforms. The GNU of 2008 to 2018 had at least had a chance of implementing the reforms because SADC was the guarantor of that GNU. Some people have said, oh, Zanu PF resisted reforms. Well, the truth is, if that was true, then Morgan Tsvangirai and his MDC friends should have taken the matter up with SADC and complained that Zanu PF were resisting reforms. They never did. MDC guys never submitted any reform proposals in 5 years. That is the truth. Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office, and they forgot about the reforms. That is the truth. And even if the proposed new GNU or transition authority, whatever they want to call it, was to have some of the most competent, incorruptible individuals, they will not be able to implement reforms as long as Zanu PF are the dominant partner in that arrangement. And the army is the veto in that arrangement. So the solution is very simple and is very clear. We, the people, should maintain our position, should continue to demand meaningful democratic reforms. And if no reforms are implemented, we should not participate in 2028 elections, particularly now that SADC and the AU have condemned Zimbabwe's elections as flawed and illegal. They condemned the 2023 elections. And it makes sense to them if one was to say, well, the 2028 elections will not be any different, since not even one token reform has been implemented. In the past, the people of Zimbabwe have participated in these flawed elections because they were misled by Chamisa and company. They were told idiotic lies like, I've plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. That was a lie. And the people themselves have not been smart enough to question, even to this day, Chamisa for lying to them, for conning them to participate in flawed elections. I repeat, Mnangagwa's threat should be taken very seriously, but this threat is directed at his fellow Zanu PF members. We should not have anything to do with it. If hyenas are fighting, it is not a goat's business to take sides. Particularly when it is clear that after the fighting is done, whichever hyena is victorious, it will celebrate its victory by having a feast of goat meat. We made the same mistake in 2017. We must not make the same mistake ever again. Zanu ndeye ropa. Let them kill each other. We have nothing to gain from in any way participating in these factional wars. Thank you. Have a good night.